the first thing that we have to talk about today is Julian Blackmon came in for a visit after visiting the Buffalo Bills and leaving without a deal. And this one got interesting. So, first of all, just to set the stage, Mike Silver has been pretty spot on with a lot of the stuff he said this offseason. But one of the things that he said a couple weeks ago was there was no guarantee that Talanoa Hufanga was going to be the starter this year. And a lot of people brushed that off. But if you think about it, Talanoa Hufanga is not the most athletic guy in the world, right? He's kind of playing above his draft position already. And he's coming off of a major injury. He's going into the final year of his deal. Would the 49ers consider replacing him? Well, we might have gotten our answer today with them bringing in Julian Blackmon, who's a very good coverage safety. He's had some injuries himself, but he's only 25 years old. Larry, we'll start with you on this one. What do you think about bringing in Blackmon for a free agency visit? And is he here to play alongside Huff? And are they looking at a 3 safety look? Or do you think that they're looking to replace Huff on the fly?
Well, I just think that the 49ers are keenly aware that Huff has had a lot of injuries going back to SC. So it's not just that, he's been hurt. He's hurt now, and he's coming off an ACL, and he may not be ready to start. Can you really depend on him? I almost feel like you've got to plan like you don't have him and let him surprise you if he can go. So, yeah, I think there's a real concern in 49er land at the safety position. I think safety is kind of the one spot that they're not really fortified. I mean, Jair Brown's nice, but is he a strong safety? Is he a free safety? Hufanga's a good player, but is he healthy? And, can he play coverage down the field? I just think, and then George Odom is their third safety. He's not really a from scrimmage player. He's a great special teamer. So, I and then you're looking at Taylor Hawkins and Eric Harris. I mean, guys who are more in that kind of, what do you want to call it? They're kind of in the developmental part of the game. I mean, they're more like practice squad type players. So I think they really do have a need, not just at backup safety. They have a need at start, for the starters. And a guy like Blackmon's interesting. He's got good size, good speed, and he's not just a body. He's going to get a significant amount of money wherever he goes. There's a bunch of teams interested, and I think they like the Utah safeties. And it sounds like they not only do they like Blackmon, they're also interested in the Utah safety that's coming out in this draft. So, we'll see. I think that's underrated need for the 49ers is safety.
Interesting. Vish, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a need as well. I think it's not a need because of anything to do with whether Talanoa Hufanga is good or not. I saw that debate going on Twitter. I think that conversation is particularly independent of this one because I think the 49ers are kind of in a funny spot at safety right now. And that's because Hufanga is in a contract year coming off of a serious injury with what Larry described as vast injury history. Now, the issue for Hufanga is, yes, he had a first-team All-Pro season just 2 years ago, and that might have garnered him in extension talks this offseason, but that injury and him not playing as well last year kind of threw the entire situation off, because I don't know if the 49ers have delegated cap room thinking about a long-term contract for Talanoa Hufanga at this point. Just he's coming off of injury. He's already in a contract year. They have other guys who need to be paid. So that is the situation for him. And then people are interested in Jair Brown. They're intrigued by his skill set. They talk about him getting an interception in the Super Bowl, though I caution people because Tarvarius Moore also got an interception once in the Super Bowl. And so that's not an indicator of whether he's a good or bad football player. That's just a stat in the game. I'm not sure if you can 100% say that next year you can walk into the season with him as the starter at safety. There was a lot of inconsistency at the end of last year. He showed flashes of talent. Certainly he's a young player you would want to ascend, but I don't know that you can 100% say he's your starter at safety going into next year. Hufanga's coming off of an injury. Blackman's a really good player with post versatility. He's played free safety, and he's also got versatility to play in the box. He has scheme familiarity playing for Gus Bradley and Matt Eberflus, similar schemes in different ways to the 49ers. He is a good fit. He is a good player. I don't necessarily know if the money is going to work because, like Krug said, he's a good player. A lot of people are interested in him. He's going to get starter money. But safety is somewhat of a need because the 49ers right now don't have a long-term starter set in stone beyond this next year. Hufanga is contractually not there beyond next year. And then Brown hasn't established himself, though we think he has the potential to do that.
I think, what's interesting to me is, as soon as I saw that Blackman was coming in, I tweeted out something along the lines of, Blackman's not here to be the third guy like Gibson. He's here to be a starter. He's the 49ers know this. They know that he's a starting safety. So you can look at that however you want, but he's here to take Huff's job. It's pretty clear to me that that is the case. You don't bring him in to be the third guy and give you depth. He's going to get a starting job. Now, whether you want to look at that and say, okay, well, maybe Huff's the starter and Tig's the young kid, so he needs to still prove himself. Maybe that's the way that you want to look at it. But to me, if you're bringing in Blackman, that's basically saying like, hey, we're not happy with our starters. We're willing to upgrade them on the fly, whatever that looks like. And I also want to say, and Larry, you probably know this because you dig deeper into the draft than anybody, the 2025 safety class looks really deep and really good. So the 49ers theoretically could come in and say, okay, we're willing to let Huff either walk or trade him. And now we can go with Tig and Blackman. And then next year we can draft another safety to develop on the fly. And maybe, Blackman only signs a 2-year deal. You let him go after that time. And then you bring in that new safety and develop him. I just think that there's so many ways they can go with this, but it's not a foregone conclusion that Huff's going to be here and be paid, especially coming off that injury. And again, we're not talking about a guy who won on his athletic ability. So if you're taking that down a notch again, that is a little bit worrisome. And I can understand why the 49ers would be kicking the tires on bringing in somebody to compete or take his job.
I'll add something to it because I have a different angle for you on it. Because I agree with you on the long term. But I think in the short term, this is the guy to start with Hufanga. Because to me, Brown and Hufanga are actually a little bit more similar just based on how I saw Brown play last year. To me, Blackman and Brown is a better duo than Hufanga and Brown, and Blackman and Hufanga is a better duo than Hufanga and Brown. Like, I think Blackman offers something a little bit different than Hufanga and Brown. So the way I am kind of looking at this conversation is if you're able to bring Blackman in, then you look at Brown as your long-term replacement for Hufanga, and you don't have to Drake Jackson Brown either. You can give Brown some time to develop. You can give him a veteran to develop alongside of. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I don't know that Hufanga's job gets taken away in the short-term interim, though anytime a player doesn't have contractual security, that can happen, right? Because you're not long-term invested in him anymore. They are more long-term invested in Brown at this point. But that's kind of how I view it, because I even if Talanoa Hufanga returns to playing how he played in the first 8 games of 2022, I think that the 49ers are in a difficult spot to offer him a long-term deal. And that's why sniffing around Julian Blackman makes sense. Because whether Hufanga is back to being excellent or whether you don't think he's that good, it's going to be really hard to keep him on this team 2024 and beyond.